I'm Calvin Elijah. I was born and raised in the community of Cool Springs, in Ojai County. When I was of age, I decided to go in the military. One of the reasons why I wanted to go, the pay on the farms in this community where I lived at was only 50 cents a day. And somebody told me that the Army was paying $21 a month, so I decided to take a whack at the Army. So I hitchhiked to Owensboro, June the 4th, 1941, to Frederick Street and met the recruiting sergeant there. Of course, he invited me right up. Me and another guy from Beaver Dam. And he told us the only thing he had open at the time was foreign service. We wanted to volunteer for foreign service, he could take us in. So we volunteered. He said the only two openings was Hawaii and Philippines. So we volunteered for foreign service to Hawaii. And after we got all the paperwork done there, he sent us to Fort Knox. Went to Fort Knox, and on June the 7th, 1941, they swore us in the Army. Then, to make it a little bit short, after I was sworn in June the 7th, we went on a train to California to be shipped out. And still they had no uniforms, still in civilian clothes, about a few ragged ones we had on. After we got to California, we stayed there about 3 days. They told us we were shipping out to Hawaii. They gave us our uniforms, put us on a great big boat. I never did see one before, but anyway, that big one. 27th day of June, 1941, I landed in Oahu, Hawaii. We went through 8 weeks of real extensive basic training. After that, after the basic training, we were assigned to units, of course. And I was assigned to Company L, 35th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division. And he asked me, of course, my sergeant wanted to know where I was from. I told him Kentucky. He said, well, you're now our scout. That was a good one, a scout. And somewhere around probably first part of December, I was at Schofield Barracks. They blew the alert call. We all went outside, and they oriented us a little bit, talked to us. Said the Japanese task force was in the Pacific and running wild somewhere, and they'd lost it. Didn't know where it was at, but it was a little danger out there. Thought for Singapore, maybe the Philippines. Didn't say anything about us. So we went, blew the call the alert off, and went back to barracks. And I guess about the 5th day of December, I looked on the bulletin board and I was to go on installation guard duty, they called it. 8 of us and a sergeant. They took us out between Wheeler Field and Schofield Barracks, which is directly under Coley Pass. And we're guarding ammunition and a shell depot. On December the 7th, I came off guard duty at 6 o'clock, waiting for my breakfast to be brought out. They brought it out in a truck, and waiting for my breakfast to be brought out. And it wasn't long till the earth began to shake, and I heard noises, all kinds of explosions. And looked around towards Wheeler Field, and there's nothing but smoke boiling up everywhere. Then I heard the planes overhead diving in dive bombers. And I still didn't know what was going on. None of us did, 8 of us. And they dropped these bombs, several on Wheeler Field, and they come over our head, strafing. Each one of these bombers did. Then the sergeant hollered that the Japanese were under attack. He told us a clip of ammunition. I had an M1 rifle. That's all we had. One clip, 8 rounds. Told us to take cover and fire at them planes. There was a Japanese plane. About that time, when it came over real low, probably a few feet off the coconut trees overhead, strafing. I turned over and fired my 8 rounds at him. I hope I hit him, but I don't know where I did or not. I tried to. Then it just one thing after the next. Then they come out and they dived. They cleaned Wheeler Field completely out, destroyed it completely practically. But to come through this Coley Pass, when they attacked Wheeler Field in Schofield. They just strafed Schofield, where I wasn't there at Schofield, but they did strafe Schofield barracks all over. But our regiment shot one of the Japanese bombers down right there in the regimental quadrangle. After that terrible day, I mean, it's just one thing. We was all so scared, didn't know where we was at. And I guess in between the raids, the waves, or whatever they want to call her, say, the waves of plane, my captain in charge of us back at Schofield came out with a little pickup truck loaded down with ammunition and light machine guns, hand grenades and so forth, unload them, told us to do the best we could defend that shell depot. So we set this all up and got that going. Then, of course, we finally got to eat breakfast, 1 o'clock, after the raids was over with. Then at night, it's starting to rain, real dark. We're on guard duty. And the phone rang where I was at, I'm on post, and told me to come back to headquarters. Said they got reports that the Japanese paratroopers had dropped out all out there in the coconut grove, in the pineapple field. So we all harnessed up with everything we had, and the sergeant led us. We went out on patrol to hunt these Japanese paratroopers, which was none. That was just rumors again. It went on all night. Then the planes come over from somewhere. I thought of where there's fighter planes or what they was. They come over, we could hear the noise, and everybody, I reckon, on Oahu was firing at them. Tracers going up in there everywhere. That's all you could see. And one or two peeled out. They got them. But it was our airplanes, off of a carrier out at base in the ocean. They sent them in. We shot, I don't know how many down. I said, well, I didn't shoot at one, but they were shot at by our men. And some of them went down. Then they turned their lights on, the plane did. Red, white, and blue, flickered them. That stopped it. You see the tracers just like a cloud of smoke, all shut off. Then the shouts of joy started out. You could hear it everywhere. We had help from home, we knew it. And that went on, everything, all night long. And the next morning, finally got daylight, and they come and picked me and some more. The captain did come back from Schofield out to get us. So we had to round up some sympathizers, some people that were working with spies for the Japanese. So this golf course joined where I was at there. And this golf course was a big thing course, big country club. And he said, that's our first stop, and that was a Japanese military officer there in charge of that. Of course, in disguise. We nailed him, went on back to our regiment where I was at. Our tailor, he was one of them, and our barber was one of them. That's all we done all day. The next day, round up these people. After that, we went back. I went back to my unit, 35th Infantry. But this shell depot that I was guarding had the shells, ammunition for the Schofield barracks, Wheeler Field and all. So this plane that come overhead, if he'd have dropped a few tracers in there, it'd been all of us. That's just one of them little things. But we took an awful lot of work in after that, all work. Stringing barbed wire all up and down Waikiki Beach, every beach on Oahu, I thought. Strung barbed wire up. Dug holes for machine guns, crossfires and all that stuff. I was in the infantry. And we done that for weeks and weeks. Worked from daylight till dark, Finally, I don't know how many months it was, probably 3 or 4 months. We went into training. I mean, really heavy stuff, hand-to-hand combat and stuff. And I think it's in probably November. They called us up for a briefing again, told us that we was going to leave. We was going to leave and didn't know where we was going at that time. but at least we're going to go fight the enemy. And we was ready for it. We'd had a lot of hard training. We was ready for it. So we got on big boats sometime in November. After we got out at sea, they told us then we was going to Guadalcanal. The Marines was there, and we had to go and give them some help and relieve them if we could. The 10th day of December, I landed in Guadalcanal. And it had been assigned as a scout. After landing there about 2 days, they told me and another scout to go join the Marines as forward observers with them and go on patrols with them. So I learned all the routes and roads and so forth where the Japanese was. I done that. And about 4 or 5 more days after I joined the Marines, 4 or 5 more days, my outfit came up and relieved part of these Marines, parts of them or all of them. And they went off to New Zealand or Australia on. Then we took over where they left off. They had the Japanese all run off little old Henderson Field there. And they was up in the mountains, the Japanese was, in the caves and valleys and everywhere. We went, and I think it's 25 or 30 days, the 25th Division had killed the last enemy on Guadalcanal. And went back down to the beach. I could get into a lot of details, but there's no use in that, on how many there was and how many piles there was here and how many piles there was there.
Tell me about that.
We went back to the beach and for a little while, where we started from on Guadalcanal. And the planes come over and bombed us every day, Japanese would, on the beach down there. One little thing I remember went real well. They was in the formation come over one morning, dive bomber, Japanese. They was unloading ships right on the beach there, LSTs and so forth for supply. This one dive bomber, I seen him come down on the dive. You know, he heading for that LST. And I was in the dugout there, right on the edge of the water, with a 50 caliber machine gun and aircraft. When he went into his dive, because we all of us in the area went pouring it to him. But he dropped that bomb and hit that LST, but we got him too. And that Japanese pilot bailed out. He landed just a little ways from us. We took him prisoner as our first prisoner of war. We got him. After all that going on day and day, and every night, never did miss one night, the Japanese big heavy bombers would come over and bomb us every night, harassing us. So then they got us together one day, said we were going to move and invade another island over there. And we went to Russell Islands. Russell Islands, I don't know how far it was from Guadalcanal. We went in the LSTs. No opposition where we landed there. They was back in the other places. We stayed there for a few weeks. And we was having food cooked by the kitchen instead of out of the cans, of course. That made us feel pretty good. This little incident I'll tell. They told me we took platoon at the time down to eat. And at that time I was sergeant. I told my men, it's our time to go eat. We'd go in groups. We got down almost to the kitchen, and I heard a shot go off back there where I come from, my tent. I run back, and there the guy was sitting on a bunk, holding his foot. He shot his toe off, deliberately. Spoils of war. He said he didn't want to go no further. He didn't have to. I don't know what happened to him and what they done with him, nothing about that. One little accident. Anyway, then we was told we was going to the Northern Solomons, to another island. Bougainville and all these other places. We split my division up. Part of them went one place, part of them went to another. We're talking about 5,000 to 6,000 men in the group, battalions, so forth. And they told me we was going to the New Georgia Islands. Well, we took one island there. Then they assigned my battalion, 3rd Battalion, 35th Infantry, I guess 5,000 of us or so, to invade this island of Vella Lavella. So the Japanese were building a little airstrip there, and we had to take it in a hurry. Well, we landed, made two attempts to land before we landed. The Japanese dive bombers on us. Finally, we landed. And these people, these Japanese that was there, most of them was engineers building this airstrip, so they run. They didn't fight. We kept running them up the island. The island wasn't very big. We'd fight and skirmish a while, and then they'd back out a while. They finally got back to where there was no place to run. We had them pinned in. And they told us to hold where we was at, not to attack them, just hold where we was at. They were going to try to evacuate them Japanese that they thought. That's what we want them, get out in the water. So that night, the Japanese planes coming over, circling, seaplanes. Then we could hear boats out there, you know, ships of some kind. And these Japanese, all started evacuation deal. They all got in these rubber rafts, rubber aircraft, all kinds of stuff. Seaplanes landing, taking off. We just let them do it. After they got out there, I guess they thought they got away. We seen lights going out there at sea. The PT boats turned on them. I'm pretty sure Kennedy was in on the deal. And they had a picnic. For 3 days, maybe 4, I don't know how many days, I was on the beach, in the beach position. The tide come in bringing all these Japanese, they drowned out there, got killed and so forth. The beach is littered with them up through there, where the tide brought them in. Anyway, after a lot of experience there in Vella Lavella, they came and told me one day to get my men ready. We was going to be relieved by New Zealanders. They came up and relieved us. At that time, we'd been in combat, see, about 1.5 years or so, whatever it was, and took us back to Guadalcanal, told us to get ready to go to New Zealand. We're going to have a rest period and get replacements. We went into New Zealand. The most beautiful place I'd ever seen since I left home. A whole lot like Kentucky. Green hillsides, sheep, cattle, beautiful buildings. They was living good there in New Zealand, people were. We had all we wanted to eat. People was friendly to us. Took us in their homes, treated us nice. We stayed there 3.5 months. Then we left and got on big old ships and went to a French island over in there. They call it New Caledonia. We stayed there a month or two, get oriented like, and then we went in hard basic training again. I mean, hand-to-hand stuff, mountain range stuff, dummy towns and stuff to take over, hand-to-hand combat in cities and all that stuff. We was getting ready, at that time, we was getting ready for invasion of the Philippines. I didn't know that, of course, but that's what we was getting ready for. Then, about January the 1st, 1945, they loaded us on big ships. All you could see was big ships where I was at down in Noumea, New Caledonia. And we got out to sea about 2 or 3 days, and they told us where we was going. We was going to make the landing in Luzon, the Philippines. And my unit was going to be one of the first ones ashore. Well, when we got on in the landing craft to hit the beaches, we didn't know what to expect, of course, but we landed without any opposition. The Japanese had pulled back. We unloaded the ships. And the second day, we started in combat in Luzon, the Philippines. That went all through the mountains of Luzon, the Philippines. I was wounded 2 times there in the Philippines. Got a piece of shrapnel in my hip from a hand grenade or a mortar, I don't know which. And got my helmet shot off one time in a town called Lupao. A Japanese sniper shot my helmet off and scalped me a little bit. But each time I got up, took first aid, and continued the battle. I wanted to come home. I knew my time was probably getting short to come home pretty soon. I'd been in combat then 4 years, or 3.5 years in combat, and in the service 4 years. finally, after all the combat there in the Philippines, which is roughest stuff you could get into, couldn't be no rougher. The 25th Division destroyed 6,000 of the Japanese forces, but we lost 2,000 good men too. And that one day they told me that I was to turn my equipment in. I was still on the front line. I was going home. They picked me up off an old bulldozer road. I went down to Manila, 2 or 3 days. But after 3.5 years in combat, I was coming home. The war still wasn't over. There couldn't have been nobody no happier than I was. When I got on the boat, big boat, in Manila Bay, I had to go out and land in barges to get on the boat because so many ships sunk in the harbor. They sunk everywhere. I got on the big boat, they call it. 25 days from the time I got on that boat in Manila till I got in San Francisco. 25 days. And the little catch in the whole thing, I was getting on a train in San Francisco to come to Cape Atterbury to be discharged. They blowed the whistles, the war was over. That's what I call good timing. I was one of the happiest persons on earth. Couldn't have been no happier. Anyway, 4 days and 4 nights I was in Cape Atterbury, being processed for discharge. Well, I got my discharge. They give me a nice dress uniform, sewed all my stuff on it. I was real proud. And I got my discharge 19th day of August, 1941. 1945, excuse me, yeah. And I got on a train, come to Beaver Dam, the place where I started out from, Beaver Dam, Kentucky. Got in there at midnight. Everything looked strange to me. But anyway, went back to my home the next morning, my dad and mother. After 30 days, I married. I wanted to farm. I was born on a farm, and I wanted to farm. So I started raising my family and stayed on the farm. Altogether, I stayed on the farm 50 years. I was elected magistrate in Ohio County 2 terms, 1962 to 1970. I served 8 years on the physical court, of course. I served 4 years on the board of directors in Ohio County Hospital. I served 4 years on the board of directors of Southern States and farmed my 50 years and raised my 6 kids. And I am a proud American. I'm now living in community of Prentice, which is about 2 miles from community of Cool Springs, where I was born at. Everything is destroyed. The coal companies have stripped everything out of the country. You can't find where you even lived at. Nothing no more. I have a son, Calvin Jr., who spent 22 years in the Air Force, or in Air Reserve, Air National Guard, and Air Force. And he has a son, Calvin Jr., Calvin III. He just completed 4 years of service in the Army. Just found out the other day that the Elizers originally came from Switzerland in this country. I was proud to find that out too. The oldest one was a Methodist minister. They come into Pennsylvania in 1700s. Migrated to, went on up to Pennsylvania, from Pennsylvania to Maryland, down to Kentucky, where I started out from, all of us. You know, in these boats, I never did see a boat. All I ever seen a little bit of small Green River thing. When I seen this big boat, like in San Francisco, for instance, when I got ready to board it, you know, to me it was another world. I never did see nothing like that. First thing I want to know how fast it went. They said, oh, 8 and 10 knots an hour, you know, an hour. I still didn't mean nothing to me, and knots didn't. I was in the Army. I didn't know about the Navy. But it was an experience that any young man. When I left Ohio County, I never had been out of Ohio County. So maybe in Muhlenberg or Davis County. But I seen things, you know, as a boy. Like I said, one of the main reasons that drove us all out, a lot of us, the younger ones, on account there wasn't nothing going on. It was right after the Depression, real bad. It was coming out of it some. The farm where I lived, for instance, there wasn't no way of getting in there except for a horse, where I was raised at. And it stayed that way till 40, 45 after the war, about it. But, you know, things like, you get off these places in this new country, like New Zealand, like I was talking about a while ago. That was a beautiful sight I ever seen. All the lights, just like here. Everything going, cars are going. But the funny part of the cars, the taxi cabs in New Zealand, they were short of gas too, like everybody was. They had charcoal burners on the trunk of their car, made their gas to operate with. And it was fascinating to me. I examined it real close. But in New Caledonia, like I said, it was a French island. And Noumea was the capital. And they didn't treat us like they should have. Let's put it that way. But I guess more of us there, GIs there, getting ready for all jump-offs than there was Frenchmen. But on these other islands, what surprised me, them people were just strictly headhunters about it, you might say. They told us what to expect out of them when we met them. Didn't know where to try to be friendly with them, offer them something to eat, candy bar or something, and see what they done. You didn't know what they're going to do. Were they going to try to cut your head off with a bolo or what? But anyway, we have different things, different versions, of course, them little islands. They had bula bula, stuff like that. That's all they could say, I like over here. They was really headhunters now, no question about it. The natives there had a little piece of grass skirt on, the women did, and men didn't have nothing on but a little G-string and a bolo or some kind down their belt. But we couldn't climb them coconut trees, you know, we wanted coconuts. Them natives would climb those coconut trees with a rope tied to their ankles, and they'd just jump up them coconut trees and chop them out with them bolo knives. And things like that. We ate too many of them, it made us sick, the coconuts. I tried the native foods that in the Philippines now, we're going to talk about the native foods in the Philippines. They went strictly, their main diet was rice, of course, and chicken, which I call them game chicken, about all the bannies and game chicken. They're running everywhere. I was going into a little old town, liberating a little old town, got it pretty well down. And there's a Filipino sitting on a little stool over there, and his wife and little baby. They hollered at me and said, "Hey, Sergeant, you come over here a minute." Said, "We want to give you your supper." Well, I told them, go ahead, up there where we was going. I'd be up there in a minute. So I went over there. This guy, he said, "We went through an awful ordeal here for 3.5 years. We're really glad you people are back. Americans is back." He said, "We'd like to feed you supper if you'd eat with us." You know, that was real nice of them, of course, and I was really hungry for something to eat. I've been eating K rations, C rations, for 5 months there. And I sat down on a little old rock or something there, and this lady brought me a little homemade bowl, wooden bowl or something, I don't know what it was, or wood or what, just a bowl. handed it to me with a couple of sticks, of course, chopsticks or something, I don't know what they was. It was rice cooked up and pieces of chicken in it. And of course, that's my first time I ever ate anything like that. And I ate it, and I really did like it. It was good. In turn, I took my pockets and turned them wrong side out. I had K rations in there, which are little boxes of food. I gave it to them. They was happy to get that. And I told them the next day I'm coming back and bring you some more. I did. So they fed me again. And it was entertaining because anything, a change on the front line when you're fighting helps you out. Anything on a change. When you fight, for instance, during Luzon in the Philippines, I went 10 days without taking my shoes and socks off, from one battle to the next, one hole to the next. Altogether, I received 6 Bronze Stars for 6 major battles in the war, and a regular Bronze Star medal. You know, I have here in my pocket the Congressional Medal. It was given to me for Pearl Harbor, attack for defense of America and Pearl Harbor. This medal here was 50 years before they gave it to us. The 50th year we got this medal. And my wife was sick at the time, dying with cancer. I couldn't go get it to be presented to it. Senator Wendell Ford took it on himself to get this in a package and wrapped it up real nice and mailed it to me. And of course it says in small print, Act of Congress, 1991. 50 years later, we got it. Well, I was in combat, and everything went. I learned the dirty tactics like they did. You had to survive. And as far as changing, I still knew, I was raised in a Christian home. I knew when it was over with, we couldn't bring that back with us. We had to go back to the normal way of life. It wasn't hard for me to do that because I was eager to do it. I wanted to raise my family in peace. But you know, people, war, when they just, the old saying, the war is hell. They got it right on earth. But you see these people all, you get wounded all around you, dead. It hurts you. But you know you got to survive, so you continue on. You don't give up. You continue on. As they told me when I promoted to tech sergeant, which is sergeant first class nowadays, I guess, as a platoon sergeant, they told me what my position was. As a platoon leader, I was the director of activities of 40 enlisted men to attack and destroy enemy and positions, or to capture and hold them until relief. And that's what I done. You know, when I started, I knew I had to get going, work, make a living when I married, of course. And I started doing that right off the bat. I was working within a week after I married. And the money didn't pay anything very much nowhere. But I'd get irritated real quick. Real quick. When I thought I was being mistreated a little bit. Or I seen somebody else being mistreated. I get irritated too quick. I knew that wasn't going to work. I had to do something about that. And I did. I took care of it myself. You're the only person who can do that, yourself. But after so long, you know you got to adopt to this thing. The war's over. These other wars come along since then, years, and in your heart, you still are with them. When you give casualty reports, it's hard to do that too. Every day we get a report. The platoon sergeant would. We'd call on a little sour power phone to headquarters, company, tell them how many men you lost, how many you had wounded, but you also tell them how many enemy you killed. And there are so many of them happening. You couldn't keep count of all this stuff. And they'd say, estimate it. Just estimate how many you destroyed today. Well, you knew you had to do these things, but to come back out and live in civilian life after this, we knew we had work to do. So I took a job, I just took anything I could do. I went to farming. And I believe farming, I farmed 50 years, like I said. I went into it moderately as best I could and raised my family on the farm. The family got big enough to help me. We all worked together. And that's what helped me after the war on the farm. I think farm had a whole lot to do with it. Although I did work in different places and a little bit of times, not very much. But I guess that's the hardest thing to do is learn how to take orders, not all the time to give them. That's probably the main thing. When you're working, you got to understand that. It was hard to do, but we done it. We learned to get along with people, just like we knew we had to. But for instance, the community where I was born, like I said, Cool Springs, Ohio County. In that little community, there was a church, a little blacksmith shop, a little grocery store, community store, had everything in it, you mount. And everybody migrated in there and got the supplies all the time. Walked, rode a horse, wherever we did. I rode the horse sometime, mule. But out of that little community, what I'm trying to explain to you, out of that little community of Cool Springs, World War II furnished 50 of their best men. Two of those best men was taken prisoner of war when the war first started in the Philippines and other places. They put 3.5 years in a Japanese prison camp. They come back to Cool Springs, and I was there too. You can't imagine what kind of shape they was in. One of those prisoners of war, I went to school with, both of them. One of them died a year or two ago. And the other one, I guess, been probably 10 or 15 years ago. But that community, what I'm explaining, that little old community, little farming community, that many men was drafted or volunteered to serve in the country. Just these two prisoners of war, of course, volunteered, was in service where I was. But you went in because you got $21 a month or $35 after you was in there a while, because there wasn't nothing else going. That was a change there. When we came back, there's a little bit more going. People could work and make a little money. But that wasn't hard to get used to that, making more money. But I also they gave us an agricultural school. I attended 4 years of agricultural school. The government gave us that. They give you a year's schooling for every year's service you had. They gave me 4 years of schooling because I had 4 years of service. That was one of the biggest helps I had. They gave me $100 a month on the job training, they called it. I trained. I went to agricultural school overnight, 2 hours, once or twice a week, went on Saturday morning till dinner, and I learned a little bit more about farming, which helped me too, which other guys, some of them didn't have that, didn't have it. But it really helped me. It really helped me. Because $100 a month back in 45 and 46 was quite a bit of extra money if you're working somewhere else too, or farming either. Helped me, helped us a lot. But the changes that was made when I come back, I like to say that. There was a whole lot of changes. They done got an electricity at Cool Springs. Power was coming in then, that year, 45. They got electricity. But the change was, that was one of the big changes, I guess, in the community, was electricity in Cool Springs. Now, no more Cool Springs, so it's still got the church, and that's it. It's all gone. I attended that church. I attended that church when I was 6-year-old, Sunday school. Cool Springs Missionary Baptist Church. But my family worked as hard as I did trying to get me oriented. After Hawaii, nobody knew where I was at. We couldn't write and tell nobody nothing. It was all just blanks. You could write, but they censored all your letters. Some officer reads your letter. Anything at all, where you was at, or even if you're sick, you couldn't tell them nothing. Not one thing. Where you was at. My mother didn't know where I was at. She knew I was in Hawaii and knew I was at Pearl Harbor attack. Other than that, she didn't know where I was at, so I come home. But my nephew here, Danny Schroeder, his sister, Maureen, my sister, she was living in Owensboro here at the time, and she'd met another man that just got back from Guadalcanal, wounded, real bad shape. Where he was one of the family or what. He told her, said, you asked your brother in a letter, was he ever on a hill so-and-so? All he have to do is say, yeah, I was there. See what I mean? That was our little code. I said, yeah, I was on that hill. I was there. But that didn't tell nobody where I was at, nothing. But Maureen, my sister, knew where I was at. See what I mean? Knew I was in Guadalcanal. That's the only thing I had at all going for me, 3 years and a half. After that, they didn't know where I was at. But that one time she did.
Tell me the first time that you can remember having that sense of you're never coming back.
Well, first time was at the Pearl Harbor attack, of course, when they was bombing Wheeler Field just a few hundred yards down the road in Strafford. My heart got beating so fast. When I fired them 8 rounds, I just knew it wasn't going to get back. Right then, I just knew it some way. I had a feeling, but I never did. After that, all these close shaves, like when this bomb hand grenade went in my foxhole, I rolled out, hit me in the hip with shrapnel from a mortar that one did. And one of the worst experiences I had, all the fighting, a few weeks before I come home, they told us to take this one hill, my platoon. We did. After I got Tuck, it was rough getting there and rough taking it. Japanese were fortified, and we destroyed them. The captain came with the rest of the company, 200 men, and reinforced me. He said, we're going to stay. We got orders to stay. I said, sir, I believe they'll be back, don't you? He said, yeah, I believe they'll counterattack. He said, let's get ready for it. So we dug holes everywhere and got machine guns set up. We had mortars behind us to back us up, all that sort of stuff like you have on the front line. We was ready. So about, when it got dark, the moon was coming up a little bit. We could see a little bit. I heard them heard the Japanese. They were hollering and screaming like they always did. He's right down, coming over this hill to us. We waited and we held our fire till they got up within firing range. And when they thought they had it made, this one officer pulled his sword out over his head and hollered "Banzai," which we knew what that meant. We've been in before. I meant the whole crowd come at us. Wherever Jap there come at us. Well, we destroyed the most of them, but some of them got through. 3 to 4 of them did, to where I was at. And I didn't think I was going to make it that night. It went on all night. This attack went on all night long, one after the other. But we held. Got daylight. I was crawling. I done had this wound, but I was crawling from hole to hole, finding out about my men. And there laid this one boy with a hole through here, through his throat. Laying, I thought he was dead. The medical man was right behind me examining these boys. He said, "I think he's dead, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." Well, all he had was a poncho and a hole with him. But he had an automatic rifle out in front of him, right in front of him. He was still holding on to it. I pulled this poncho over this guy, this man, went on to another hole. We'd given this guy first aid. He looked back and this poncho moved. He said, "That man's alive." I run back and jerked it off, and he turned his head just a little bit. I seen this all shape he was in. First thing you want to do is give a guy a cigarette, of course. I lit a cigarette and put it in his lips. Smoke. We gave him first aid the best we could and got him on a stretcher. It's about probably a half mile down the road to the path, rather, trail, to the first aid station. We got him going. The aid man done all they could do for him there. But some way now, I got the word that he lived. It was a miracle that he lived. I don't know where the word come from, but somebody passed it up that he's living. But I didn't think I'd make it that night. After all these years, I got a readout on that from my division headquarters right now. I got a place to call, a call. They told me to send it in send out for application. They'd send me an application to require all these battles, like that in there, for instance, I've been in. They would send me a readout on it, telling it what we done and how it happened. I've got it. I've got the readout on it. It says Company L, 35th Infantry, was in a banzai attack all night long for mortars, machine guns, rifle fire, hand grenades, from dark till daylight. 1 man wounded. They didn't consider me wounded because I was still going. 1 man wounded was that guy I was down talking about, and 3 dead. One of the platoon sergeants was killed. There's 3 of us. 1 was shot up in the legs. But that went on anywhere he's at on them islands. Any island he went on, we went in to fight, of course. We knew it. But we was trained for it. We was ready for it. But for us being scared, always scared. The man that says he wasn't scared when all this is going on and coming at you, there's something bad wrong with him. Right there. I'm telling you it was. But you done what you're supposed to do. You done it on the spur of the moment, right there. I'd have to say, knowing what I know now, Dan, I would do it again. I would. Because I know I had to. Somebody had to. We had to do what we done. We had to. We had to win. We had our purpose, and we done it because we had to. And I believe most of the people would say the same thing I'm saying too. It was in World War II. I believe that.